My father was the reason I couldn't walk after my 14th birthday. My sister knew this and still invited him to my wedding behind my back. I was 23 when my boyfriend proposed to me, and unfortunately the first person I told was my younger sister Alice. Up to this point, we were really close. She was bubbly and sweet, her cheeks filled with freckles, always down to give you a hug. There was just one thing we never talked about, our father. You see, I figured out pretty quickly that my dad wanted one of us to be his favorite daughter, because he was always looking for one to bring out in public, to plaster all over his social media. And at first it was me. I was the golden child, the one my grandparents would come over and dote on. So when Alice turned 4 and my dad would come home angry, which was almost every day, all of it would be directed at her. This only lasted a day though, because the next day, I did what I now like to think of as the burrito. I wrapped my arms around Alice and took the brunt of the force. That time it was so bad that it actually left me with permanent marks, which meant he was forced to make Alice the new golden child, which is exactly what I wanted. And I did everything I could to hide my pain. So now, Alice thinks our dad is this amazing man who has sacrificed so much for his family. She still has no idea what he did to me the second I hit puberty. So when I told her about the proposal, guess what her initial reaction was? Yay! Let's invite daddy, he's gonna be so happy. She said it with such a bright smile that it broke my heart. So I just pretended like I didn't hear her and switched topics. Because even if I wanted to invite him, I couldn't. There was no way my fiancé Tommy would be able to face him without laying hands on him. Me and Alice started spending a lot more time together after that. My fiancé had just gotten a promotion at his job, so she was the only person who would help me plan. And not just the fun parts like the dress shopping and picking the venue. She helped me with every nitty-gritty detail, down to the types of decorative flowers and colors of the napkins. One day, after a particularly hefty week of party planning, we decided to have a girls' night in. We went all out. White wine, the most unhealthy food we could find on DoorDash, chocolate-covered strawberries, and the Disney movie Tangled. And I guess it is true that nothing good happens after 2 a.m., because that's when she brought up our dad again. I really wish you'd make more of an effort to spend time with him, Gertrude. He really loves you, you know. Her words sent goosebumps up my arms. I even had to hold back a shiver. Can we please not talk about this right now? No. Her voice was stubborn, and I knew she wouldn't let it go until I gave her at least some sort of context as to why I effing hated him. Alice, do you remember my 14th birthday? Oh my gosh, yes. It was so fun. The way she lit up so easily always made me smile. Do you remember when he told everyone to leave because he wanted to have a special daddy-daughter dance with me? She nodded enthusiastically. Yes. And you were so tired after that you couldn't walk properly. She stopped herself mid-sentence. I didn't say anything else. I never wanted her to know. I just wanted her to stop mentioning that effing man around me anymore. For the rest of the night, we just sat in silence as we watched the movie, but I could tell it was on her mind, because the whole time her eyebrows were furrowed and she was staring at the window instead of the television screen. Plus, it's not like I was watching either. I was too busy wondering if I let my mouth speak too much, if I was a bad sister. Over the next few days, Alice was non-stop asking questions about our childhood. So after discussing it with my fiancé Tommy, and thinking about it long and hard, I realized something. Alice was 21, and I couldn't hide the truth from her forever. So I told her I'd answer all her questions until I got married, because I needed to leave the past behind. Turns out she had completely forgotten the memory of me doing the burrito, probably as a trauma response. But once I reminded her, I think everything finally clicked, because she asked if she could stay with me instead of our father, and every night I'd catch her under the covers crying. And whenever I walked in, she would apologize. I'm sorry for not knowing. I'm sorry for not thanking you sooner. I always tried to interrupt her and remind her that through it all, I just wanted her to be happy. This always made her smile, which in turn made me smile too. Then came the day of my wedding. My dress was long and white, doused with lace. I remember actually feeling so pretty, so strong, and Alice was so proud to be the one to walk me down the aisle. But when I got to the end, my heart was ripped out of my chest, because in the corner of my eye I spotted my father, smirking. Alice ran over and lunged at him for a hug. I knew you'd make it, Daddy. I felt bile begin to rise in my throat. Just give him a chance, Gertrude, she yelled, unashamedly, but I could see the conflict in her eyes. She was trying to convince herself as much as me. The reception continued, but the joy had been sucked out of the room. I kept glancing at the exit, half expecting my father to reappear. Tommy noticed and squeezed my hand. He's gone, Gertrude. Try to enjoy the rest of our wedding, he whispered. I nodded, but the knot in my stomach wouldn't unravel. Alice stayed close to me for the remainder of the reception, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy. She barely touched her food, and when it came time for her maid of honor speech, she stumbled through it, her voice cracking. Later that night, after we'd said goodbye to our guests and retreated to our hotel suite, Tommy held me as I finally broke down. I'm sorry, I sobbed into his chest. I'm sorry he ruined our wedding. Hey, nothing's ruined, Tommy said, stroking my hair. We're married, that's all that matters. But I couldn't shake the feeling that my father's appearance was just the beginning of something worse. His parting words echoed in my mind. This isn't over. The next morning, I woke to find Alice had texted me multiple times. I'm so sorry about yesterday. Can we talk before you leave for your honeymoon? Please, Gertrude. I need to explain. I'm at your apartment. I'll wait until you get here. Tommy and I weren't leaving for our honeymoon until the following day, so we headed back to our apartment. Alice was sitting on the floor outside our door, hugging her knees to her chest, her copper hair falling in tangled waves around her face. I've been so stupid, she said as soon as she saw me. Her eyes were swollen from crying, the freckles standing out starkly against her pale skin. I believed everything he told me. I helped her up and led her inside. Tommy made coffee while Alice and I sat at the kitchen table. He called me last month, she began, staring into her mug. Said he'd heard about the wedding through a family friend. He sounded different, remorseful. He told me he'd been in therapy, that he'd realized how badly he treated you. I felt my jaw tighten. And you believed him. I wanted to, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. He's our father. I thought if he could change, maybe we could be a real family. Alice, I know, she interrupted. I know now, but he was so convincing, Gertrude. He cried on the phone. He said his biggest regret was losing his relationship with you. Tommy snorted from the kitchen. Manipulative bastard. Alice nodded miserably. After you told me about what he did to you, I still couldn't fully accept it. I kept thinking maybe you were exaggerating, or maybe it was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? My voice came out sharper than I intended. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes again. It was easier to believe that than to face the truth. But yesterday, when he showed up, the look in his eyes when he saw you, she shuddered. I saw it. What you've been trying to tell me all along. I reached across the table and took her hand. It's not your fault. He's always been good at making people see what he wants them to see. There's something else, Alice said, her voice dropping. He knows where you live. My blood ran cold. What? I didn't tell him, I swear. But when I called him about the wedding, he already knew your address. He said he'd been keeping tabs on you. Tommy cursed under his breath. We need to change the locks. Today. I don't think that's enough, Alice said, her eyes wide with fear. Last night, after he left the wedding, he called me. He was different, cold. He said things about you, Gertrude. Horrible things. He said you'd always been a liar, that you made up stories about him to get attention. That's ridiculous, Tommy said, his hand coming to rest protectively on my shoulder. Gertrude barely talks about him at all. I know, but then he said, Alice hesitated, looking at me with fear in her eyes. He said he was going to set the record straight, that he wasn't going to let you poison everyone against him anymore. The knot in my stomach tightened. What exactly did he say he was going to do? He didn't say, but he sounded determined, scary. Tommy was already on his phone, looking up locksmiths. We'll get the locks changed right away, and I'm installing a security camera at the door. I nodded, but I knew these precautions wouldn't be enough to stop my father if he was truly determined. The locksmith came that afternoon. Tommy also installed a Ring doorbell camera and added extra deadbolts. Alice insisted on staying with us, sleeping on the couch despite our offer of the guest bedroom. That night, I barely slept. Every creak in the apartment building made me jolt awake, my heart hammering against my ribs. Tommy held me close, his steady breathing eventually lulling me into a fitful doze. The next morning, we were supposed to leave for our honeymoon, a week at a beach resort a few hours drive away. I was torn about going, the thought of leaving our fortified apartment making my skin crawl with anxiety. Maybe we should postpone, I suggested as we packed. No way, Tommy said firmly. We're not letting him ruin this too. Alice will be fine at her friend Rachel's place, and we've done everything we can to secure the apartment. I knew he was right. We couldn't put our lives on hold because of my father's threats. The resort was beautiful, a sprawling complex right on the beach. Our room had a balcony overlooking the ocean, the endless blue stretching to meet the horizon. Try to relax, Tommy said, massaging my shoulders as we stood on the balcony that evening. We're safe here. He doesn't know where we are. I leaned back against him, trying to believe it. For the first 2 days, I managed to push my worries aside. We swam in the ocean, lounged by the pool, ate at fancy restaurants. On the third day, I received a text from an unknown number. You look beautiful in that blue swimsuit, Gertie. The ocean suits you. I dropped my phone like it had burned me. Tommy picked it up, read the message, and immediately scanned the beach around us. We need to go back to the room. Now. Once inside, Tommy called the front desk while I sat on the bed, shaking uncontrollably. The hotel security team searched the grounds but found nothing suspicious. They agreed to keep an eye out and offered to move us to a different room, which we accepted. How did he find us? I whispered as we repacked our things. How did he know what I was wearing? Tommy's face was grim. I don't know, but we're cutting the honeymoon short. We're going home tomorrow. That night, I received another text. Running away again, Gertie? You always were a coward. See you soon. We checked out first thing in the morning and drove straight back to the city. Alice was waiting at our apartment, pale and anxious. He's been calling me, she said as soon as we walked in. Multiple times a day. I blocked his number, but he keeps using different phones. What does he say? I asked, dreading the answer. Mostly he asks about you, where you are, when you're coming back. I haven't told him anything, I swear. She twisted her hands together, a nervous habit from childhood. But yesterday, he started saying things about me too. About how I've betrayed him by choosing you. Tommy paced the living room. We need to go to the police. And tell them what? I asked, sinking onto the couch. That my estranged father is sending creepy texts? That he's calling my sister? They can't do anything until he actually threatens us or shows up here. He was at the resort, Gertrude, Tommy argued. He's stalking you. We don't have proof of that, I pointed out. We never saw him there. Alice looked between us, her face crumpling. This is all my fault. If I hadn't contacted him. No, I said firmly, taking her hands in mine. This isn't on you. He would have found a way back into our lives eventually. He's been keeping tabs on me, remember? The next day, I returned to work at the small graphic design firm where I'd been employed for the past 2 years. I needed normalcy, routine, anything to distract me from the constant fear. Around lunchtime, the receptionist called over to me. Gertrude, there's someone here to see you. Says he's your father. My heart stopped. I looked up to see him standing in the office doorway, smiling pleasantly. He was wearing a suit, looking every inch the successful businessman he pretended to be, his silver-streaked hair perfectly styled. Surprise, he said, walking toward my desk. Thought I'd take my daughter to lunch. Catch up properly after the wedding. I'm busy, I said, my voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart. Nonsense. Everyone needs to eat. He turned to my coworker Juniper, his smile widening. saying, "You don't mind if I steal her away for an hour, do you? Father-daughter time is so precious." Before Juniper could respond, I stood up, outside. Now, I led him to the sidewalk in front of the building, my hands shaking so badly I had to shove them in my pockets. "What do you want?" I demanded once we were out of earshot. "Is that any way to greet your father?" He smiled, but his eyes remained cold. "I just want to talk, Gertie. Clear the air between us. There's nothing to talk about. Leave me alone." "I can't do that." His voice hardened. "You've been spreading lies about me to your sister, poisoning her against me. I told her the truth. Your version of it, maybe." He stepped closer. "But we both know what really happened, don't we? How you used to beg for my attention. How you'd do anything to be Daddy's favorite." Bile rose in my throat. "That's not what happened." "No?" His smile widened. "I have journals, you know, from back then. Detailed accounts of how you'd come to my room at night. How you'd—" "Stop it," I hissed. "That never happened. It would be your word against mine. And these journals are very convincing." He reached out as if to touch my face, and I flinched back. "I'd hate for Tommy to read them. Or your colleagues. They might see you differently. No one would believe that." "Are you sure?" "People love a scandal, and I can be very persuasive." He straightened his tie. "All I want is for things to go back to normal. For my daughters to respect their father. Is that too much to ask?" "Yes," I said, finding my voice. "It is. Because you're not a father. You're a monster." His expression darkened. "Be careful, Gertie. You're playing a dangerous game. So are you." I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling the police." He laughed. "And telling them what? That your father wanted to have lunch with you?" He shook his head. "Think about what you're doing. If you push this, I'll have no choice but to defend myself. And that means telling my side of the story." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving me trembling against the wall. I called Tommy immediately, then texted Alice. We agreed to meet at home after work. That evening, the three of us sat in our living room, trying to figure out what to do. The takeout dinner Tommy had brought home sitting untouched. "He's bluffing," Tommy insisted. "These journals don't exist." "But what if they do?" Alice asked quietly. "What if he's been planning this for years?" I shook my head. "Even if he has fake journals, who would he show them to? And why would anyone believe him over me?" "People believe what they want to believe," Alice said. "He's charming, convincing. You saw how easily he won over people at the wedding." "We need evidence," Tommy said. "Something that proves what he really is." "Like what?" I asked. "It's been years since I lived with him, and he was always careful not to leave marks where people could see them. Except once, the burrito incident. Those scars remained hidden under my clothes." Alice looked up suddenly, her eyes widening. "The burrito? What?" "You said it left permanent marks, the time you protected me." I unconsciously touched my back through my shirt. The scars had faded over time, but they were still visible, thin white lines crisscrossing my shoulder blades. "Would that be enough?" Tommy asked. "Maybe not on its own," I admitted, "but it's a start." The next day, I received an email from my father. The subject line made my blood run cold. "For your consideration." Attached was a PDF. Scanned pages from what appeared to be a handwritten journal. The entries described in sickening detail a twisted version of my childhood where I was the aggressor, seeking my father's special attention. The handwriting was perfect, just like I remembered from birthday cards and school permission slips. The final page contained a note. "I have dozens more like this. I'd hate for these to become public. Let's talk about how we can resolve this situation amicably. Dinner at my house, Friday at 7. Come alone." I forwarded the email to Tommy and Alice. Tommy called immediately, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. "This is extortion. We're going to the police." "With what?" I asked. "An email inviting me to dinner? These journals that make me look like the perpetrator?" "He's threatening you." "Not explicitly." I inhaled deeply. "I need to think about this." Alice called next, her voice breathless with excitement. "I think I might have something," she said. "Remember how Dad used to record everything? All those home videos he'd make of his golden child?" I remembered. He'd been obsessive about documenting his perfect family image. "I took some of those tapes when I moved out," Alice continued. "I never watched them. They were just sentimental junk to me. But what if there's something on them? Something that shows how he really was?" Hope flickered briefly. "Where are they?" "In storage with my other stuff from his house. I can get them tomorrow." That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those journals, wondering if my father had really been writing his twisted version of events all these years, preparing for the day I might speak out against him. The next morning, Tommy was already on the phone when I woke up. "Yes, that's right," he was saying. "We need copies of all police reports filed at that address between 1998 and 2010. He paused. "Yes. I understand they may not be available electronically. We're willing to come in person." After he hung up, he explained, "I'm trying to find records of any calls to your childhood home, neighbors reporting disturbances, anything like that." "I don't remember the police ever coming," I said. "Maybe not when you were there, but it's worth checking." Alice arrived that afternoon with a cardboard box full of VHS tapes and DVDs. "There are dozens," she said, setting the box on our coffee table. "I have no idea what's on most of them." We spent hours going through the tapes, watching snippets of birthday parties, school events, and holiday celebrations. Most showed exactly what I expected. My father presenting his perfect family image to the world. Then Alice found one labeled simply, Gertie-13. This would have been right before. She trailed off, looking at me uncertainly. "Play it," I said, bracing myself. The video showed me in our old living room, sitting stiffly on the couch while my father's voice came from behind the camera. "Tell us about your day, Gertie." On screen, I looked uncomfortable. My adolescent body hunched as if trying to disappear. "It was fine. Just fine? Nothing exciting happened to Daddy's special girl?" I watched my younger self flinch at the phrase. "No," Screen Me said quietly. "Come on, Gertie. You know what happens when you're not cooperative." The camera zoomed in on my face. I could see the fear there now, plain as day, my eyes wide and wary like a trapped animal's. "I got an A on my science project," I said finally. "That's better. And who helped you with that project?" "You did." "That's right. Daddy always helps his special girl, doesn't he? And what do you do for Daddy in return?" On screen, tears welled in my eyes. I'm good." "You're good how? Say it properly." "I'm good for you. Only you." The video cut off abruptly. The three of us sat in stunned silence. Tommy couldn't finish. "Grooming," Alice whispered. her hand covering her mouth. He was grooming you, on camera. I felt numb, disconnected from my body. Seeing it from the outside, hearing his voice, seeing my fear, made it all horrifyingly real. There might be more, Alice said, digging through the box with renewed purpose. We found 2 more videos that showed similar interactions. My father's voice becoming increasingly possessive, my responses growing more fearful and rehearsed. This is evidence, Tommy said. Real evidence. I nodded slowly, a plan forming in my mind. But is it enough? Before anyone could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Looking forward to dinner tomorrow, Gertie. Don't forget, come alone, or those journals go public. I showed the message to Tommy and Alice. You can't go, Tommy said immediately. I have to. I gestured to the TV. This might be evidence to us, but to everyone else, it's ambiguous. Creepy, yes, but not definitive. If he releases those journals, people will believe him. So what's your plan? Alice asked. I'm going to get him to confess. On record. Tommy and Alice immediately protested. Absolutely not, Tommy said. It's too dangerous. Alice nodded vigorously. He could hurt you again. You can't be alone with him. I held up my hand. I won't actually be alone. That's the point. I picked up my phone. I'll record everything. Get him to admit what he did. And how exactly do you plan to do that? Tommy asked. He wants to feel powerful, in control. If I act scared, vulnerable, he'll gloat. He always did. I don't like this, Alice whispered, hugging herself tightly. What if something goes wrong? That's why you two will be nearby, I explained. Not inside, he'd notice, but close enough that if anything happens, you can be there in seconds. After hours of discussion, we finally had a strategy. I would go to dinner as requested. Tommy and Alice would wait in a car down the street, monitoring the audio feed from my phone. I would wear a second recording device, a small voice recorder tucked into my bra, as backup. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's face, heard his voice calling me his special girl. Friday evening arrived with cruel swiftness. I stood in front of the mirror, examining my reflection. I'd chosen my outfit carefully, a modest blouse and jeans, nothing that could be misconstrued as provocative. My hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, my face free of makeup. You don't have to do this, Tommy said from the doorway. I met his eyes in the mirror. Yes, I do. He crossed the room and wrapped his arms around me from behind. I'll be right outside. One text and I'm coming in. Alice was waiting in the living room, her face pale with worry. I found something else, she said, holding up a small tape recorder. It's better quality than your phone, and it has longer battery life. I took it gratefully, testing it before slipping it into my pocket. Thank you. The drive to my father's house felt surreal. I hadn't been there in years, not since I'd moved out at 18. As we approached, I recognized the manicured lawn, the pristine exterior, always perfect on the outside, the rot hidden within. Remember, Tommy said as he parked down the street, we'll be listening the whole time. If anything feels wrong, use the code word. We'd agreed on childhood memories as my signal for them to intervene. I kissed him goodbye, then walked the short distance to my father's front door. Each step felt heavier than the last. Before I could knock, the door swung open. My father stood there, smiling that familiar smile that never reached his eyes. Gertie, right on time, always so punctual. I forced myself to meet his gaze. Let's get this over with. He chuckled, stepping aside to let me in. Still so direct. Some things never change. The house looked different. New furniture, different color scheme, but the layout was the same. I could still map every escape route, every hiding spot, just as I had as a child. Dinner's almost ready, he said, leading me to the dining room. I made your favorite, pot roast with those little potatoes you used to love. The table was set for 2, complete with candles and wine glasses. It looked like a date, not a father-daughter dinner. My skin crawled at the implication. I'm not hungry, I said, the smell of the food making my stomach turn. Sit anyway. His voice hardened slightly. We need to talk. I sat, positioning myself so I could easily reach the door if needed. He disappeared into the kitchen, returning moments later with 2 plates of food. Wine, he offered, holding up a bottle of deep red liquid. I shook my head. I need to drive home. 1 glass won't hurt. He poured anyway, pushing the glass toward me. To family reconciliation. I left the glass untouched. Is that what this is? Of course. He took a sip of his own wine. I want us to put the past behind us. Start fresh. By threatening me with fake journals? His smile didn't waver, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Those journals are very real, Gertie. I started writing them when you were 12, right around the time you started showing interest. I felt sick but forced myself to stay calm, to remember the plan. That's not what happened. No? He set down his glass. Then what did happen? From your perspective. This was it. My opening. I took a deep breath. You know exactly what happened. You abused me. Physically at first then. I couldn't finish the sentence. Such imagination, he sighed, cutting a piece of meat with surgical precision. You always were creative. Remember those stories you used to write? Always about princesses being rescued from towers. He leaned forward. But we both know you were never interested in being rescued, were you? You liked our special time together. I dug my nails into my palms under the table. I was a child. You were supposed to protect me. I did protect you. From the world. From boys who would have used you and discarded you. His voice was soft, reasonable. Everything I did was out of love. Love? I couldn't keep the disgust from my voice. You call what you did to me on my 14th birthday love? A flicker of something crossed his face, quickly masked. You were always so dramatic about that. It was a dance, a special moment between father and daughter. You warped me, I said, the words burning my throat. After everyone left, you took me to your bedroom and you whooped me. He set down his fork with deliberate slowness. Be very careful about what you're saying, Gertie. False accusations have consequences. They're not false. We both know what happened. What I know, he said, his voice hardening, is that you were always seeking attention, always trying to be special. And when Alice started getting more attention than you became desperate. I almost laughed at the absurdity. I wanted Alice to get attention. I protected her from you. Protected her? He raised an eyebrow. From what? From the beatings. From what you did to me when I hit puberty. I leaned forward. Remember the burrito? When I wrapped myself around her so you'd hit me instead? His expression darkened. That never happened. The scars on my back say otherwise. He waved a dismissive hand. Childhood accidents. You were always so clumsy. I pulled out my phone, placing it on the table between us. I have the videos, Dad. His hand froze halfway to his wine glass. What videos? The ones you made, where you're grooming me, calling me your special girl, asking what I do for you in return. Uncertainty flickered across his face. Those were private family moments. They don't prove anything. Maybe not on their own, but combined with my testimony, Alice's testimony, and the physical evidence, I touched my back meaningfully. It's enough. He was silent for a long moment, then smiled again, but it was different now, colder, more calculating. What do you want, Gertie? Money? Is that it? I want you to admit what you did. All of it. He laughed. And why would I do that? Because if you don't, I'm going to the police with everything I have. The videos, the scars, the witnesses who saw how you treated us. It might not be enough to convict you, but it will be enough to destroy your reputation, your career, your life. His eyes narrowed. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I held his gaze. Or you can admit what you did right now, and I'll consider keeping it between us. He took a long sip of wine, the silence stretching between us. And if I admit it, what then? You'll forgive me? We'll be one big happy family again? No, I said honestly, but I'll think about not pressing charges. He set down his glass and leaned back in his chair. Fine. You want me to say I hit you? I hit you. All parents disciplined their children back then. It was more than discipline. What do you want me to say? His voice rose slightly. That I was harder on you than I should have been? Fine, I was. But you were difficult, stubborn, just like your mother. I stayed silent, waiting. He needed to say it himself. After a long pause, he sighed. The burrito thing. Yes, that happened. Once or twice. But you're exaggerating how bad it was. And my 14th birthday? His jaw tightened. What about it? Tell me what happened after everyone left. We danced. That's all. That's not all. He stared at me for a long moment, then smiled slowly. You know, Gertie, I've always admired your persistence. Even as a child, when you wanted something, you wouldn't give up. He leaned forward. Is that what this is about? You want me to say I touched you inappropriately? That I forced myself on you? I didn't respond. Just waited. Fine, he said finally, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Yes, I had sex with you that night, and other nights. But you wanted it. You begged for it. You were always so desperate for my approval. My stomach lurched, but I forced myself to stay calm. I was 14, a child. You were mature for your age. You knew exactly what you were doing. Did I ask you to stop? He hesitated, then shrugged. Sometimes. But that was part of the game. You like to pretend to resist. It wasn't a game, I said quietly. I was terrified of you. Nonsense. You loved me. You still do, deep down. He reached across the table for my hand. I pulled away. I need to use the bathroom. He gestured toward the hallway. You know where it is. Once inside the bathroom, I locked the door and leaned against it, breathing deeply. I checked my phone. The recording was still going. I sent a quick text to Tommy. Got it. Coming out now. When I returned to the dining room, my father was refilling his wine glass. I'm leaving, I said. I have what I came for. He was on his feet in an instant, blocking my path to the door. What does that mean? It means I recorded everything you just said. I held up my phone. Your confession. About the abuse. About ARPing me when I was 14. The color drained from his face. You can't use that. I didn't consent to being recorded. Actually, this state has one-party consent laws for recordings. I only needed my own consent. I took a step back. Now move. I'm leaving. Give me the phone, Gertie. His voice was dangerously low. Number. He lunged forward suddenly, grabbing for my wrist. I twisted away, but he caught the edge of my blouse, yanking me back. Give me the damn phone! He shouted, his face contorted with rage. I stumbled backward, hitting the edge of the table. Wine glasses toppled, red liquid spreading across the white tablecloth like blood. Let go of me! I shouted, hoping Tommy and Alice would hear through the phone. My father's hand closed around my throat, his fingers digging into my skin. You ungrateful little bitch. After everything I've done for you. Black spots danced at the edges of my vision as I struggled to breathe. With my free hand, I reached blindly behind me, fingers closing around the stem of a wine glass. I swung it forward with all my strength. The glass shattered against his temple with a sickening crack. He staggered backward, releasing my throat. Blood trickled down the side of his face. You hit me, he said, sounding almost surprised. You actually hit me. I backed toward the door, keeping my eyes on him. Stay away from me. It's over. It's not over until I say it's over. He lunged again, but this time the front door burst open behind me. Tommy charged in, followed closely by Alice. Get away from her, Tommy shouted, positioning himself between me and my father. My father froze, looking from Tommy to Alice, then back to me. You brought them? After I specifically told you to come alone? Did you really think I'd trust you? I asked, my voice hoarse from his grip. Alice stepped forward. We heard everything, Dad. Everything. For a moment he looked genuinely frightened, a cornered animal realizing it had no escape. Then his expression hardened again. It won't hold up. I'll say I was coerced, that you threatened me. With 3 separate recordings? I pulled the voice recorder from my pocket. And witnesses who heard you attacking me just now? I don't think so. He looked at each of us in turn, calculation clear in his eyes. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. A hollow sound devoid of humor. My clever Gertie. Always one step ahead. He sank back into his chair, suddenly looking older, smaller. So what now? Police? Prison? Public humiliation? That depends on you, I said, my hand finding Tommy's. Stay away from us. Completely away. No contact, no messages, nothing. Move away if you have to. If you do that, maybe these recordings stay private. And if I don't, then everyone hears them. Your colleagues, your friends, the police, everyone. He considered this for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You win, Gertie. For now. We left him sitting there, surrounded by the ruins of his carefully planned dinner. None of us spoke until we were safely in Tommy's car, driving away from the house I'd never have to see again. Are you okay? Tommy asked, glancing at me with concern. Your neck. I touched the tender skin where my father's fingers had dug in. I'm fine, or I will be. Alice reached forward from the back seat, squeezing my shoulder. You were amazing in there. So brave. We all were, I said, taking her hand. The next few weeks passed in a blur of cautious normalcy. My father sold his house and moved to another state, just as we demanded. I kept the recordings safe, insurance against any future contact. Alice moved into her own apartment, but we spoke daily, our bond stronger than ever. Tommy and I finally took a proper honeymoon, a cabin in the mountains, far from any reminders of the past. On our last night there, sitting on the porch watching the sunset, he asked me a question I'd been expecting. Do you regret not going to the police? I thought about it carefully. Sometimes. But this way, we control the narrative. The recordings stay private unless he forces our hand. I leaned against his shoulder. And honestly, I'm tired of my life revolving around him. This way, it's over on my terms. It wasn't a perfect ending. The scars, both physical and emotional, would always be there. A part of my history I couldn't erase. But as I sat with my husband, watching the sky turn from gold to deep blue, I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. My father no longer had power over me. The truth was out, acknowledged. Alice knew everything and still loved me. Tommy had seen the worst of my past and stood by me through all of it. For the first time in my life, I was truly free.